Good evening all. My name is Daniel Cairns. I'm the Head of Enrolments here at Ducere Global Business School. And firstly, thank you. Thank you. It's a busy time of the year, but you've made a very wise decision to commit yourself some time to understand more about what is, we believe, and what has been endorsed by many as Australia's most innovative MBA. It's my pleasure tonight to not only host this evening, but welcome a very special guest in a graduate that has finished. Habib Ajaka will join us very, very shortly, and I'm quite keen to have you engage more so with my special guest, as tonight is about you. Anything that you would like to know about the commitment, about the opportunities, about the application of learning, all those things that we will go through. Feel free to ask questions at any time. Just so everyone knows as well, just a little bit of housekeeping. As I said, type in your question at any time. I'll get to it either immediately or if it's on the agenda to touch on later, I'll certainly acknowledge your question and let you know that I'll come to that. And we're going to make it short and sharp and succinct. And as I said, try and get to my guest as quickly as I can tonight after providing a very brief overview, but also explain next steps and the levels of support that no doubt you've spoken with Oscar and Josh, who are there to help you guide you through what is a very important life decision. So good on you. Firstly, we'll just go quickly through what we'll cover. I'll give you an overview of our partnership with the university and a little bit of background on Ducere. We'll get to our guest extremely quickly because I appreciate not only his time, but I'm sure you'd rather hear from him than me. Also touch on the industry projects, which are a really, really cornerstone of the MBA, the program and assessment structure, application enrolments, scholarships that may be available, and a Q&A. But the whole thing really is a Q&A. For those of you that don't know, the Ducere story is quite unique in that we started first and foremost as a foundation. Our founder, Matthew Jacobson's a very, very passionate, at the time, educational entrepreneur who was in Africa. And being passionate about education, he looked at the local schools and realised that some of the primary schools had no resources. He thought he could make a difference through sending some resources like books, and it did fail because Western cultured books and African children are very far apart. Rather than give up and being as persistent as he is with things that he wants to succeed in, he's actually started publishing the children's stories they had told him while he was there. That's now seen our foundation grow to work in 25 countries in Africa, and we're just about to print very proudly our 1 millionth children's book or children's story that contain stories from different primary schools in 25 African nations. We do have the aim of working in every country, all 50 countries within Africa by 2025. It's a very big undertaking. It's a challenge, but it's well on the way to succeeding. That also gave Matthew the inspiration to harness the power of storytelling in executive education here in Australia. So his dream was then fulfilled through attracting 250 global leaders to our faculty, whom donate their time to be filmed so that their inspiring insights can also form part of your course content. So we launched our first MBA in Australia, now almost 6 years ago now, which has been an amazing success and has really seen the MBA landscape in this country change somewhat, with many people realising the importance of industry integrated learning. Is the key. So we're really, really proud of that. Since then, we've launched bachelor degrees, we've launched other university partnerships in Australia, we've expanded to university partnerships in Africa. And just to give you an insight into where we are as a business as well, we've launched in the UK with 2 universities, one very recent partnership in University of East London, born through COVID, to be honest. We were speaking with them for some time, but the COVID situation has seen us accelerate that partnership very, very proudly. And we're using those programs that we run, both MBAs and bachelor degrees in America, in the North American market. So we are expanding globally. COVID certainly impacted us, as it has many businesses, both presented challenges early on, and certainly has presented many, many opportunities. Being a veteran, I guess you could call us, 10 years in online learning. So we hope to assist others get their online learning right, but also see many, many more students combine their life, work and study at the same time through studying online as well. Our partnership with Torrens University in this case is brilliant. So we partner, as I said, with universities in many parts of the world, and in every university partnership that we have, it's pretty similar in that we design the content and we do that with industry engaged engagement. The university then accredit that content, so your qualification always comes from the university, but then it is us here at Ducere that support you on your learning journey, with certainly a focus on you more as a customer of ours rather than the traditional university model of support, which is brilliant sometimes and obviously sometimes isn't as specialised as what it could be, because in all honesty, they're running 200-300 courses. In this country, we're running 6, and we just want them to be the world's best. So your qualification comes from the uni, the content and support come from Ducere Global Business School. The benefit for you in that scenario is that you access content and support developed by us, I guess a very modern, progressive and innovative business school, yet the accreditation of a respected university. Our industry engagement is paramount, and I'm going to talk a lot about that tonight as well, because they were instrumental in us designing the course the way we have, but also further engaging throughout the MBA for our students' benefit and to make a difference, in all honesty, as well. We've experienced growth every year and thereafter. That's a little old now because we've just finished 2020. Very proud that almost 50% of their graduates are women, with the average unit mark being a distinction. We have an extremely high retention rate, and extremely proud of that retention rate, because not all online learning programs achieve the same success, but the model works and the support works, and 96% of alumni would recommend this MBA to family and colleagues, which is always a good thing. Which brings me now to someone that can tell you a lot more about it than I guess, because my next guest, my very guest, is going to join us now. I'll just bring up his page here, and I'll just make Habib first a fellow panelist. 1 second. Hello, Habib. How are you?
Hey, Daniel. How are you?
Brilliant. Thank you kindly. Thank you for joining us. And just to give you a quick intro as well, MBA alumni. How good does that sound now after all the hard work? But I will say, with more than 15 years spent in financial services industries across various leadership roles, developing client-focused, high-performing teams, skilled in payments and cash management with proven performance in sales, account management and extensive experience in developing strategy right through to implementation. Currently the Executive Director and Head of Funds and Insurance Transactional Banking at ANZ. Welcome. And more importantly, MBA graduate Habib. Thank you for joining. I hope you've taken the time to include on your LinkedIn profile as well, MBA at the end of your name, or not quite yet.
No, not quite yet, but thanks for that warm introduction. Pleasure to be here.
It is absolutely our pleasure. And just so the audience are aware, this is about you guys and the life decision that you face. So please use the opportunity to engage with us, especially Habib, and ask any questions that are relevant for yourself. We'll certainly frame the discussion, but if there's anything you would like to know about Habib's experience in the program, please feel free to type the questions in and I'll get to them and manage them as we go, because it's all about you. But firstly, Habib, in a senior role that you were in, I guess, even prior to commencing an MBA, what was the motivation, I guess, to undertake an MBA before we get into why you chose this one?
Yeah, look, I think to be completely honest, before, I've got to go a long way before being established, but one of the motivations for me was that I felt, I was lacking the awareness and basic understandings of the teachings behind some of the frameworks that I was applying to my day-to-day, particularly in leadership, in people leadership. Being a leader of teams and people, it wasn't so much about trying to be a better leader, but it was more about gaining kind of those skill sets that I wouldn't otherwise get in the corporate world. You're really focused on, adhering to the values or the behaviors of a certain organization, but not really understanding some of the background behind some of those teachings. And so, to take that one step further, I wanted to challenge myself and identify where my strengths and weaknesses were. And I think, I quickly realized that one of my weaknesses was referencing the MBA, to be honest. But, the MBA has certainly helped me take that next step and really understand what I've been doing.
It's not kind of always a wasted, when we say wasted, it's not just an academic skill. You'll even, I guess, see your business report writing change somewhat as a result of having that fundamental skill of referencing within an MBA. But then,
Yeah, no doubt.
so you started on you understood the need, and then you looked at you undertook the journey as to the right one, and obviously you looked at a number. But what was it in particular about the Ducere UC MBA that attracted you?
Yeah, look, I think the innovative nature of the Ducere MBA, particularly around the way it was structured, the experience and the exposure you get to, I think for me, that which sold it was the 3 industry projects. So you get the opportunity to work alongside organisations that are in the not-for-profit sector, corporate organisation, but equally government. I don't think you get that opportunity with the majority of those programs out there. And then the other part for me that really got me hooked was the online ability to be able to complete the course whilst managing kind of the workloads of work and home. I've got a family of 3 little boys who are very active, so being able to juggle the home tasks versus the study tasks was a big sell for me. But the capability that the MBA provides, but equally the network that you gain by speaking to professionals all around the world, not just domestically, is very valuable for me.
That's brilliant, and we'll come to the peer group shortly. You just touched on something about uni fitting in with you, not you fitting in with university, I guess. What does that look like? How did you fit it in? And how long did you take to finish the MBA?
Yeah, so it took me 2 years. So I did it part-time. How I did it, I'm not so sure, to be perfectly honest. Because
what are you doing with all the time now?
Yeah. Well, I've just absorbed it back into work. But the point is, I think you've got to do it at your own pace. You've got to make the sacrifice. It's not about having a kind of set structure. It's really about understanding that you're doing the MBA for a specific reason. You've got to have that goal in mind, but you've also got to make sure that you're balancing that with whatever you've got on the go at the same time. So I've got a really big job. I've also got a family that I need to look after, but I also wanted to complete the MBA. So for me, it was about doing it after work, potentially even putting some time aside on the weekends, even to a point where I was on holiday and I had to spend some time reading through papers or doing quizzes, for example. So I think it really is up to the individual, but the way I did it, it kind of worked. It worked for me. My structure won't necessarily work for everyone, and I think you've got to balance that. But I think the main part about that is just keeping it in the back of your mind that there's a goal at the end of it, and just continuing to persevere and make sure that you get there. And look, I'm not going to lie, it was challenging and it was hard through the process, but now that I've completed it, I look back and I go, there were so many points where I could have easily tapped out, but just the constant learnings that you're getting out of it doesn't, it'll be all, yeah.
That's interesting. And it's not uncommon. I think everyone, especially with particular units, some people dive in and love, and some people obviously struggle with. When there's 12 units, it's not every unit's everyone's cup of tea every time, which is only natural. We lean towards our strengths and need to sometimes push through, I guess. And as you said, there were times in which, but if you had your time over again, I guess, would you do anything differently throughout your studies?
Do you know what? No, I probably wouldn't, because I think it worked for me, and in the way I structured it, it worked. What you need to do again is make sure that this is a sacrifice that you're doing for a particular reason. So just keep that goal in mind and just strive towards it. Would I do anything differently? Yeah, probably not.
Brilliant. Your peer-to-peer aspect, and I'm going to ask the audience for questions, and I can see someone's raised their hand, but the peer-to-peer aspect, you mentioned that you're networking both with fellow students, but also industry, and we're going to move to the projects in the next question. But what was your peer group like, and the caliber of
phenomenal
network?
Yeah, phenomenal. From all parts of the world, different skill sets, different experiences, some really, really senior, some have just ventured into their careers, a lot of business owners. It was phenomenal. And you kind of don't realize how much experience each person has until you actually get in the throes of either a project or a discussion through a webinar. And so, to connect, one of my biggest things was, as soon as I'd connect to somebody on a project or via a webinar, we'd connect via LinkedIn to keep that connection going, because I think it's what you make out of it when you're building your network. And someone told me whilst I was growing up and pretty early on in my career, is that your network is your net worth. And being able to create a contact in Sweden, being able to create a contact in a particular organization that's ASX listed is invaluable. So for me, it was one of my top priorities.
That's a really good quote. And also from that, who knows what opportunities come in the future. The industry projects are the cornerstone of how we've designed the program. And for the benefit, I'll move into this probably a little bit more in depth after we bid you farewell. But they are unique, and as you said, they are varied in not-for-profit, also governmental or large corporates. Tell us the projects that you worked on, starting as learner, and I'll get into this in a moment, but you went from learner to manager to leader of the third project. What were the three projects that you worked on?
Yeah, look, given we were under NDAs for all three of them, I'm not so sure I can disclose too much, but what I will say is that each of the projects were completely different in the way that they needed to be approached and the objectives the organizations wanted to get out of each of those projects. They range from working out whether something called placemaking, which I didn't know about as a learner, would work in a particular state of Australia, and that was for the government. The other one was working through how we could attract, potentially employees to cover an aging workforce for one of Australia's largest and most reputable brands. Again, that was as a manager. And then the final one was creating a brand awareness campaign and strategy for a not-for-profit to end slavery, of all places, in India.
Wow.
Very, very different opportunities. And the progression, I guess, you make from learner going through to manager to leader, it allows you to kind of understand what your role is in those projects. I'm not suggesting that, as a learner, you can't contribute to becoming a leader or you can't contribute to leading a particular part of the project. It's just that you need to be able to absorb the different dynamics of the group, and the leaders are actually being marked on how they actually lead the project and how they achieve those specific outcomes. So you've got to temper your enthusiasm with just where you fit into that project, I guess.
That's a great way of putting it. You've got to play your role. And you might come in as a senior executive like yourself or a CEO of 20 years, but you're a learner within the team. And I really appreciate you saying that doesn't mean you don't contribute. You certainly contribute, but you've got to play that role, I guess, and let the leaders lead, even though I'm sure you've seen scenarios within the group projects that you may think, well, I would have done that a bit differently. But sometimes you've got to let that play out. And it's kind of no different in the workplace as well, in some regards.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. In that third project, I'm keen on understanding more. Do you feel that you made a difference in the world, I guess, by undertaking a for-purpose project?
Yeah, look, I certainly hope so. Particularly for the client, it all came together at that final presentation. It was a hard slog trying to understand how on earth a group of 8 people could potentially go a long way to ending child slavery in a different part of the world that we weren't in. But it's amazing how quickly you come together as a group and try to identify what are those key strengths or what are those key things that we're going to give to those particular clients. And then, standing up in front of the board and telling the board of this particular not-for-profit things that they can do to enhance their brand and, achieve more funding and do certain things to go a long way to minimizing or at least stopping slavery for a certain part of that community was super powerful. And I don't think you get that opportunity every day of the week. So, and the validation is when the board and the owner of the not-for-profit turns around and says, that was amazing and that's going to make a fundamental difference to what we do moving forward. That's powerful.
That is, isn't it? I love hearing that because, we've had hundreds and hundreds of projects, corporate, governmental and not-for-profit, but it's always seems to be the students hang their hat on the one that actually is for purpose. And they're all brilliant in the learning outcomes that you have, but to actually combine a learning outcome with a purpose, I think is extremely powerful. Good on you. I've heard a bit about that. That's a really, really amazing thing that you did as a team with yourself as the leader. Now, we removed exams from the MBA as well, strategically, because in all honesty, we think they're a complete and utter waste of time. So instead, you're empowered often to choose the topics of your assignments that instead make up your assessments. Did you have often the opportunity of applying your learning to your role at ANZ as well?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I think, a lot of the learnings that you go through, like I said earlier, it gives you the frameworks to be able to think about specific topics as you go through a conversation or an instance at work. And it gives you that perspective to be able to think through why you're actually doing what you're doing, and also applying some of those learnings as well. The other thing is you can choose to apply the learnings, or you can just choose to go about, the way you'd handle it prior to an MBA. But I think having the understanding and the knowledge and the background as to why things are done certain ways, certainly allows you to apply them day to day.
Very good point. And someone else summed it up better than I when they said they came from another MBA where they said everything I did had me looking backwards. Most of what I'm doing now is having me look ahead, forwards. And I guess projects and application of learning is certainly in that. Innovation and leadership. Specifically, we've designed it, there's no electives for everyone that doesn't know. There's absolutely no electives in the MBA, which is sort of unique, I guess. But with industry telling us that regardless of the future of change, and this was certainly pre-COVID, the two constants that remain are the need to innovate and the need for strong leadership. How influential are those two pillars within the program?
Yeah, super. I'm in banking, and banking's all about innovation at the moment. And so, doing the course and then applying that to what we do and thinking about how we innovate, and not only innovate internally, but innovate externally, and see what the market's looking at and doing, and how do we become part of that journey, or, I hate to use the word, but the ecosystem, is very relevant. And, the course did give me those tools to be able to look at things differently. And, when you've got an MBA that says innovation and leadership next to it, that I think would be super powerful as well moving forward.
That does bring me to leveraging it from a employability perspective, but I want to open up the audience. I'm talking too much. I'm enjoying the conversation too much, to be honest. I want to open up to the audience to ask questions that are relevant for them as well. I can see someone with a hand up. Chantel has a hand up, but just if you want to put your hands down and just actually type it in the Q&A, I'll get straight to it. Employability, I guess, either at senior executive level like yourself, or even at a relatively new leader level. How do you feel people could leverage their MBA in even an interview sense, I guess, once completed, or even on their learning journey?
Yeah, look, I think particularly through the interview, around the behavioural questions, drawing on the experience that you had when working in a group, when you're working virtually, when you face conflict, had a difficult conversation that perhaps the project didn't go the way it did, how you manage time. There was so many valuable, tangible examples that you could potentially draw on in an interview, that if you were ever asked a question, and they asked you to draw from, an experience outside of your work experience, this would be perfect for it.
Yeah, that's interesting as well. The practical nature is, and I can see a question coming through here. Just one second. Where is it? Got one coming through. I'll just wait for them to continue typing. Is there any other points that I haven't covered, Habib, regarding what you found either unique or beneficial within the program?
Yeah, look, I think just the way it's structured, to be honest, Daniel, I think, it gives you the ability, like I said, to work at your own pace. It also gives you the ability to create that network that you want. It gives you the ability to explore different ways of doing things. It gives you the opportunity to get the experience at a practical level with real life problems that you need to solve. And I think it also gives you the opportunity to be yourself. I think the worst thing that you could do is, if you are undertaking this MBA, is to be fake about it. You've actually got to be yourself through the program, because you'll get found out really quickly. And I think, if you're true to yourself and you're true to what you want to get out of the program, I think you'll go a long way. I think, a lot of people will identify it pretty quickly, whether you're half-baked and you're not in it for the right reasons, and you'll get found out pretty quickly. So for me, it's, and have fun with it.
That's insightful. Be yourself, be genuine. I mean, look, I guess some people can, and I'm not sure if you did or not, but we do speak with many that, and I suffered it myself before I went to business school, what we now know as the imposter syndrome. And it can enable, well, it can make people, I guess, put up a front or try and project an image that they think other people want to know. But as you said, they get found out. So to be yourself, to be genuine, and I guess you get more out of it that way too, by engaging on a deeper level with not only peers, but academics and industry leaders through the projects as well. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you've also not got to be afraid to ask for help. If you're, if you're being challenged by whatever it is, it could be, the workload, or it could be the times that you're having meetings, or it could be the amount that you've got on outside of the course. The people that are doing the MBA are leaders in their own fields, regardless of what it is, whether they're running their own business, whether they're in a corporate organization, they're leaders in their field. And so they understand the effort that's involved, and everyone's in the same boat, paddling up the same stream. So you've got to be able to, like I said earlier, be true to yourself and put your hand up when you need help, because everyone's there to get you through it.
That's a good point. Let's, for one moment, if I can indulge myself in thinking ahead. Did you attend the virtual graduation, or are you not yet?
No.
Your graduation's early next year, isn't it?
Early next year, and I'm hoping it's going to be in person.
Well, so do I. And I do for two reasons. One is that we love the graduation events. We've done them virtually and they've been fantastic, and we've adapted really, really as best we can during COVID. And it's been still just as good to see everyone's pride and so forth. But can I ask you, when you receive your qualification, your master's degree on stage, you walk off in that hat and gown, what's your family going to think of you, the boys and your wife?
Oh, look, I think they'll be proud for sure. Through the last 2 years, them seeing me, and I don't know if you can see my background, but it looks like I'm stuck in a laundry, but this was my workspace for 2 years. And so every time they see me in here, I was doing uni for them. They're 12 years old, 9 years old, and 7 years old. And so, they don't really understand or comprehend what it means to get a master's degree, but hopefully one day in the future, they will, and they'll remember this little room that I'm in, and they'll remember what it meant and the sacrifice that I made to get it.
Yeah, and they made as well, dad time and things like that. It's a family decision in many ways.
Yeah.
But we love nothing more than seeing those graduates walk off that stage, try and capture that moment where you're beaming. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing you at graduation. I think it's in March or April next year, hopefully in person by then. And the way we're going, it should be. Any final questions? There's one about hours. If you could put it into terms of hours per week, how many hours did you commit to the MBA studying part-time?
Look, I'd say probably about 10 to 15 hours.
Yep. And that's doing it well too, doing it properly. I'm sure there's ways that other people find efficient ways of studying in terms of not digesting a whole academic paper and just articles or paragraphs within, but that's doing it right, you'd say.
But again, yeah, and again, that was me.
Yep.
I'm a print highlight kind of guy, so I'd like to read through all the material before before attempting something. But I can't cope with reading it off a screen as well as I do printing it off. So for me, it was about printing and reading and doing all that stuff. But everyone works at their own pace.
And pre-COVID, did you find yourself studying? I assume you travel with work a fair bit. Did you find yourself studying in some amazing places around the country or around the world?
The best part for me was on the plane to and from Melbourne, reading notes, but then equally at night after a long day in the hotel room doing the quizzes or writing the essays or so heaps of stories around that. Yeah. In Singapore, I did my second project.
So brilliant.
Yeah, so it was awesome.
Oh, that's fantastic. Any final questions, and your last opportunity to really make the most of Habib as our guest, but also enable you to understand more. If not, we're going to keep moving and also say a genuine thank you. In what has been a challenging year for many, especially those trying to juggle everything, the work changes, life changes, all those sorts of things, but to finish your MBA is a massive achievement, and to do it so well in leading a project, not only that makes a difference, but those other projects that you worked on, and to commit your time for helping others hear your story and hopefully realize, number one, the commitment is worth it. Number two, it can be done. And sharing your experience in the value of it. I certainly appreciate that. I wish you and your family all the best. I hope to see you early next year at graduation, and thanks for your time, Habib.
Thanks, Daniel. And look, feel free to reach out whenever you want. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to assist. I love helping people. So good luck and all the best.
Brilliant. Thank you, and congrats once again.
Cheers. Thank you.